As a kid, two of my favorite things growing up were video games and violence. Not real life violence, but violence in entertainment, violence in movies and video games. I still have this vivid memory. It took place on Halloween night, where we were at my grandpa's house, and my dad had brought over the movie Dead Alive, also known as Brain Dead in some other parts of the world. It was during the Zingaya scene. Remember that scene where it's like that weird bug thing is crawling on that one dude, and they chop off his arm, and then they chop off his head? I love that scene so much. It scared me to death, don't get me wrong, but I love that scene so much, and it has stuck with me throughout my entire life. I mean, that whole movie has stuck with me forever. I still remember the cover vividly. It used to scare me so bad, but I still loved it. So I thought, hey, this would be a pretty cool video to make. I want to talk about the enemies that scared me when I was a kid. Because when I was a kid, I played a lot of M-rated video games. Not because my parents let me. Oh no, they would not let me play these games. But, I would go downstairs at around 4 o'clock in the morning on Saturdays, and I would play games like BioShock and Gears of War and Halo, obviously. All these games that had horrific enemies in it, at least to me. Well, at that age, I'm pretty sure anything like that would be horrific. I would say that is where my love for horror and being scared originated from, was M-rated video games and the movie Dead Alive. One of the first and memorable times I was scared during a video game was the level 343 Guilty Spark on the first Halo game. For starters, the level is nothing like the previous level in the game. In the previous level, Assault on the Control Room, you're in the snow battling the Covenant. There's this feeling of awe and awesomeness when you play the previous levels. But then you see the beginning of 343 Guilty Spark, and you already know that something is off.
Transmission from the captain's dropship was from this area. That was over 12 hours ago. When you locate Captain Keyes, radio in, and I'll come pick you up.
This is one of the first times where I ever encountered atmosphere in a video game, because I never really played survival horror until I was much older. But this level nails the atmosphere perfectly. To me, one of the creepiest parts about this level actually happens at the very beginning. As soon as you get off your Pelican, you see another one down that's about 50 yards away. As you get closer to it, you hear this repeating message. Now, it's nothing too creepy nowadays, but when I first heard it as a kid, I thought it was one of the creepiest things I had heard in my entire life.
We are under attack by some new kind of hostile. It isn't Covenant. Captain Keyes has been captured by hostiles. Dug in at a large structure.
Because you don't know what actually happened. You think it might just be the Covenant, but then you hear the message say it was some kind of Covenant, something unknown, which, as you'd expect, gets the mind going. You start thinking about, well, what's out here besides the Covenant? But then you start going in the right direction, and you hear an explosion, and you see the bodies of jackals and grunts flying off the mountain. You'll also see these weird creatures in the fog. They don't look Covenant, but they also don't look human. One thing that I noticed playing through this level the first time was that there aren't any elites, which is very weird because elites are pretty much the leaders of the Covenant infantry. It's not very often where you don't see elites in the first Halo that much. So that's another thing I've noticed and I'm kind of worried about because I was like, what's replacing the elites? There's also this part in the level where you come across this crazed Marine who's shooting at you. When you listen to what he says, you think he's crazy, but you come to realize much later on that he's not.
Stay back! Stay back! You're not turning me into one of those things! I'll blow your brains out! Get away from me! Ah! Ah! Don't touch me, you freaks! I won't be like you, I'll die first! Find your own hiding place. The monsters are everywhere. Play dead. That's what I did. Play dead. They took the live ones. Oh God, I can still hear them. Monsters. Ah! 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 Just leave me alone! Sarge, Mendoza, Sandy. Oh God, the things took them.
When you get about halfway through the level, there's a cutscene that plays that explains to you why there are no elites and why there are no humans, because the point of this level is to look for your captain. But you figure out pretty quickly by this cutscene what happened.
Right, well, let's get this door open.
I'll try, sir. But it looks like these Covenant worked pretty hard to lock it down.
Just do it, son.
Yes, sir. I got a bad feeling about this.
Boy, you always got a bad feeling about
Captain
something.
Sarge, can you hear me? What's going on? He's got contact, lots of them, but they're not Covenant. They're just tearing through us. What the? Oh no!
Corporal, do you copy? Over. Mendoza, get your ass back up to second squad's position and find out what the hell is going on.
But...
I don't have time for your lip, soldier. I gave you an order.
Sarge! Listen!
What is that? Where's that coming from, Mendoza?
Everywhere. I don't... There! Mira!
Hold still! Hold still! Let him have it! Sergeant, we're surrounded. God damn it, Jenkins! Fire your weapon!
There are too many, Sarge!
Don't even think about it, Marine.
Oh, listen, local!
Jenkins!
I'll explain what happened. Pretty much what happened is that the Covenant accidentally released this parasite called the Flood. The Flood pretty much reanimates corpses and takes control of the victim's mind. It's also a parasite that can learn very quickly. Just minutes after encountering these horrific looking creatures, they're already picking up guns and shooting you with them. So that used to also scare me pretty bad as a kid, because not only is it just a horrific looking monster, but they can learn very quickly. The Flood scared me as a kid because not only were they smart, they were very dangerous. With their claw arm, they're able to just rip you apart. They also look horrifying and also sound nasty. In the later games, they improved upon the Flood's look and sounds, but this is what scared me as a kid first. Gears of War is a franchise that is full of terrifying monsters. From the Locust himself to Theron guards, Reavers, Corpsers, and Brumacs, the whole Locust army is riddled with terrifying creatures. But there's one in particular that always scared me when I was a kid, so I have a question for you. What's blind, fast, and full of extreme aggression? If you guessed the Berserker, then you're right. This 10 feet tall beast was introduced at the end of Act 1 in the first Gears of War game, and the way they introduced her was the best way they could have introduced any monster in the entire series. Here, just take a look.
You're Baird. Yeah, that's right, asshole. Question is, who are you? Oh shit, quiet. Don't move with that. A Berserker. She can hear us. She can smell us.
Oh man, we're fucked! We're fucked! I'm getting out of here!
Oh my god.
That's the same reaction I had when I was 8 years old. But then I hear from Anya that we have to get her outside and use the Hammer of Dawn. Great, doesn't sound too hard, so we go ahead and do it. Well, then I hear Marcus say,
Well, unfortunately, all we gotta do is get her to follow us.
I was so scared to play past this part because I did not want this thing following me that I couldn't play it for weeks. So normally what I did was that when I got to this part of the game, I just reset it back to the first act. I don't think I got past the first act until like 3 weeks later. But after a while, I finally got the stones to beat her, and I did. Although it took a few times because not only do you have this giant thing running right after you, but you have a time limit. When you get to the second hall, you get a time limit. And that stressed me out so much, and I just couldn't do it for a while. But when I finally got her outside and used the Hammer of Dawn on her, it was one of the greatest feelings I've ever had in my entire life. To me, it felt like a real accomplishment. I know when I say that, a lot of people are going to laugh, especially a lot of my friends and family. But when you work so hard on something and you finally achieve your goal, it's one of the most satisfying feelings of all time. For me, it just goes for anything. It doesn't matter if you're trying to achieve your goal in a video game or in real life. It's just a satisfying feeling. Alright everyone, that's the end of today's video. Let me know what scared you as a kid. Maybe it was the hands from Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Or maybe it was the same enemies from my video. Please let me know because I'm really interested. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in another video.